Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're kind of putting on our explorer hats and diving into ethnobotany,
Yeah.
where people and plants intertwine.
Yeah, it's really incredible to think about how for centuries cultures around the globe have used plants in like deeply spiritual and ritualistic ways. And we're not just talking about medicine here, but ceremonies, traditions, beliefs, all passed down over generations.
Exactly. We've got a ton of research here on how different cultures have used psychedelic plants, from the Amazon rainforest to the deserts of North America. So I guess our mission today is to kind of understand how these plants have shaped and continue to shape human connections with the spiritual world.
It's wild how these plants aren't just seen as substances, right?
Hmm.
But often as like sacred tools for healing, gaining knowledge, and connecting with something bigger than ourselves,
Yeah, for
like
sure.
a higher
Yeah,
power.
I'm ready to jump in. Let's start with the Amazon rainforest and the legendary ayahuasca brew. You might be surprised to learn that it requires a very specific combination. The Banisteriopsis copyvine and Psychotria viridis leaves. Can you imagine being the first person to discover that?
Oh man, talk about a deep understanding of nature, right? And the ceremonies themselves are fascinating. Imagine like an experienced shaman, a curandero, guiding you through an all-night ceremony using ayahuasca to help you heal, gain insight, and tap into the spirit world.
Intense.
Not exactly a walk in the park.
Definitely not something you'd try on a whim. The accounts I've read describe incredibly vivid visions, emotional releases, and even a sense of oneness with nature. But it doesn't sound easy. What can you tell us about the challenges involved?
Well, it's important to remember that these ceremonies can be physically and emotionally intense. People often face like deep-seated emotions and confront personal challenges. The extended time commitment, often all night long, allows for profound introspection and transformation.
Yeah.
It's a process.
It's more of a marathon than a sprint. And it's interesting that you mentioned the time commitment because it seems like the communal aspect is just as important as the individual experience, right?
100%. Ayahuasca ceremonies are about coming together as a community, sharing stories, and supporting each other through the intense experience. The shaman guides the journey with Icaros, which are traditional songs believed to invoke healing spirits and guide participants.
So it's not just about the visions, but also the shared journey, the collective healing, the connection to something ancient and powerful. Makes you wonder how these rituals have been carefully preserved and passed down over generations. Speaking of ancient traditions, let's travel north to the deserts of North America and explore the role of peyote in the Native American church.
Yeah, this one is particularly interesting because it blends elements of traditional Native American spirituality with Christianity. They use peyote, a small cactus containing mescaline, to connect with the divine and gain spiritual insight.
What I find fascinating is that it's not simply about consuming the cactus. They view it as a teacher, a guide to understanding the sacred and connecting with the Great Spirit. It's about respecting the plant and the knowledge it holds.
Right. And much like the ayahuasca ceremonies, peyote ceremonies are deeply rooted in community. Prayer, song, and communal sharing are all essential parts of the experience, reinforcing the bonds between participants.
Imagine sitting in a circle under a vast desert sky, sharing stories and songs that have been passed down for generations, all while seeking guidance and wisdom from the peyote. It really highlights how these plants often act as a bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds.
Exactly. And the way they approach the plant itself is fascinating. It's not seen as a recreational drug, but as a sacred tool for accessing higher realms of consciousness and receiving guidance from the spirit world.
It's a powerful reminder that context is everything. The same plant can have vastly different meanings and uses depending on the cultural lens through which it's viewed. Now, how about we journey across continents to explore a plant with a slightly different energy? Iboga.
Iboga is used by the Bwiti people of Central Africa, and it's a powerful example of a plant with a rich history in traditional use and a growing presence in modern medicine.
Now, when we talk about Iboga, we're actually dealing with two distinct things, right? There's the whole plant, used for centuries in woody traditions, and then you have Ibogaine, a specific alkaloid within the plant that's gaining attention for its potential in treating addiction. It's pretty amazing how one plant can straddle these two worlds.
It really speaks to the incredible complexity of these plants and how much we still have to learn from them. Let's start with the Bwiti tradition, where Iboga plays a central role in their initiation rituals.
Okay, I'm all ears. What exactly happens during these rituals?
Okay, so picture this. A ceremony that lasts for days, deep in the heart of the rainforest. Participants consume iboga, and it takes them on a profound inner journey, right?
Yeah.
They believe that iboga helps them confront their deepest fears, connect with their ancestors, and gain a clearer vision of their purpose in life.
Wow. It's like a crash course in self-discovery with the site of spiritual awakening. From what I understand, these ceremonies aren't for the faint of heart.
No, definitely not your average weekend retreat. They can be incredibly physically and emotionally demanding. But the Bwiti people believe that by facing these challenges head-on, with the guidance of Iboga, they emerge stronger, wiser, and more deeply connected to their community.
Yeah. It's a powerful example of how these plants can be used to facilitate profound personal growth and transformation, but always within a specific cultural and spiritual context. Now let's shift gears to the modern world. You mentioned Ibogaine, an extract from the iboga plant, is being studied for its potential to treat addiction. That seems like a world away from ancient rituals.
It does, doesn't it? But it highlights how the wisdom embedded within traditional plant knowledge can have a real impact on modern medicine. Researchers are particularly interested in Ibogaine's potential to help people overcome opioid addiction.
Really? That's incredible. How does it work?
Well, it's still being studied, but some research suggests that Ibogaine can interrupt the cycle of addiction by reducing withdrawal symptoms and cravings. It's almost as if it helps reset the brain's reward pathways.
Wow. That's fascinating. It makes you appreciate the power of these plants and the importance of approaching them with respect and a willingness to learn.
Absolutely. It's not about extracting a single compound and ignoring the cultural context. There's a growing movement to integrate traditional knowledge with modern medicine, recognizing that both have valuable insights to offer.
It's a beautiful example of how ancient wisdom and modern science can work together. Well, we've explored the depths of the Amazon and the heart of Africa. Now get ready for a quick but intense trip because we're about to delve into the world of Salvia Divinorum.
This one is particularly fascinating because it offers such a different experience compared to the longer, more drawn-out journeys associated with ayahuasca or iboga.
You're right about that. I've heard the Salvia experience is incredibly intense, but also incredibly short-lived. What can you tell us about it?
Well, Salvia Divinorum is traditionally used by the Mazatec people of Mexico, primarily for divination and healing. It's said to provide incredibly vivid and often surreal visions. But the catch is, these experiences typically last only a few minutes.
Wow, a few minutes. That's a stark contrast to the all-night ayahuasca ceremonies we discussed earlier. It's amazing how different plants can offer such different windows into altered states of consciousness.
Exactly, and while the experience might be short, it's certainly not forgotten easily. Shamans would use salvia to access what they believed were higher realms of consciousness, seeking guidance from the spirit world.
It's like a lightning bolt of insight. So, are we talking similar intentions to what we discussed with ayahuasca and iboga, seeking healing, connecting with the divine, gaining knowledge?
Absolutely. The intentions behind using Salvia Divinorum are often very similar, but the method and the experience itself are quite distinct. It's all about tapping into something bigger than ourselves, just through a different lens.
It really highlights the diversity of human experience and our endless fascination with exploring the nature of consciousness. Okay, we've covered some pretty potent plants so far. Now let's take a quick trip to Australia.
Ah, Australia. Home to many unique and fascinating plants, including the one we're about to discuss, Paturi.
Paturi, here we come. What's the story with this one?
Paturi comes from a plant called Duboisia hapwoodii, and it holds a special place in the traditions of indigenous Australians. It wasn't just about the psychoactive effects, though. Paturi played an essential role in their social customs, healing practices, and spiritual ceremonies.
Okay, so it had a multifaceted role in their culture. Tell me more about these different uses.
Well, socially, Paturi was shared among tribe members as a gesture of goodwill and used during ceremonies to strengthen bonds and reinforce community ties. Medicinally, it was believed to have pain-relieving and healing properties.
It's fascinating how something as simple as sharing a plant can have such profound social and cultural significance.
And it wasn't just about the physical act of sharing, right? Remember, for Indigenous Australians, their connection to the land and their ancestors is paramount. They believed that Paturi helped them tap into the spiritual realm, connect with their ancestors, and gain a deeper understanding of their place within the natural world.
It's a beautiful reminder of how intertwined these plants are with their cultural and spiritual beliefs.
Absolutely. And what's remarkable is that Paturi was also a valuable trading commodity among different tribes. Imagine that a plant with spiritual significance, medicinal properties, and social value all rolled into one.
It's like an ancient form of currency. but with an added layer of spiritual connection. Okay, we've bounced around the globe quite a bit on this ethnobotanical adventure. Let's make one more stop before we wrap things up.
Sounds good to me. Where are we headed?
This time we're heading back to the Amazon rainforest, but we're going to explore a different method of connecting with the spirit world. Yopo.
Ah, Yopo. This one is interesting because it's a bit more, shall we say, intense than Paturi.
Oh, do tell.
Well, while Paturi was often chewed or mixed with ashes, Yopo is a snuff made from the seeds of the Adeninathera tree.
So we're talking about a powerful, fast-acting substance here.
You could say that. Amazonian tribes used Yopo in their rituals to induce vivid visions and connect with the spirit world. The experience was often described as being quite intense and challenging, but they believed it was a powerful way to receive guidance and healing.
It seems like every culture has its own unique approach to accessing altered states of consciousness. Now, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I'm curious to hear about a plant that might be a bit more familiar to our listeners. Cannabis. We've explored its use in modern society, but what about its historical role in spiritual practices?
Cannabis has a surprisingly long and rich history when it comes to spirituality. In ancient India, for example, it was closely associated with Shiva, one of the most important deities in Hinduism.
Really? I had no idea it went back that far. What was its role in those traditions?
Well, it was believed that cannabis could help devotees achieve heightened states of consciousness and connect with the divine. It was often used during religious ceremonies and rituals to facilitate spiritual experiences.
It's a good reminder that our modern understanding of cannabis, often associated with recreational use, doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of its historical and cultural significance.
Absolutely. And it's not just India. Cannabis also played a role in ancient Persia, where it was used for divination and gaining spiritual insight.
Wow, it seems like cannabis has been intertwined with spirituality for centuries across different cultures and continents.
It certainly has. And it speaks to this innate human desire to connect with something bigger than ourselves, to find meaning and purpose beyond the everyday. It's a common thread we've seen throughout our exploration of ethnobotany today.
It's amazing to think about how these plants, often misunderstood or demonized in modern times, have played such a profound role in shaping human spirituality and culture for centuries.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder, what happens when these ancient traditions collide with the modern world?
It's like we're opening this treasure chest of ancient wisdom, but then the modern world is trying to figure out what to do with it, you know? We see this happening right now with the rising interest in ayahuasca retreats and other forms of psychedelic tourism.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating and complex issue, right? On the one hand, you have this incredible opportunity for people to explore their consciousness and connect with these ancient traditions. But, it's a slippery slope.
Right. It's easy to see how these sacred plants could be exploited for profit or reduced to just another trendy experience for someone, right? And then suddenly, we're not talking about respecting ancient traditions anymore. We're talking about cultural appropriation and all that.
Exactly. And that raises a whole host of ethical questions, like
Yeah.
who truly benefits from these experiences? Are these ancient traditions being respected and preserved, or are they being kind of diluted and commercialized?
Yeah. It's a tough one. On the one hand, making these experiences more accessible could lead to greater understanding and appreciation, but then there's also the risk of just, I don't know, losing the heart of these traditions, the cultural context, the spiritual depth.
And that's why it's so important to approach this whole thing, this whole topic, with sensitivity and respect. It's not about imposing our modern perspectives, but about listening to the voices of indigenous communities, understanding the significance these plants hold within their cultures, and ensuring that their knowledge is honored and protected.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance for sure. And it makes you wonder, can these ancient traditions even survive and thrive in the modern world? Or will they inevitably be changed in ways we can't yet imagine?
It's a question we all have to kind of grapple with, right?
Yeah.
As we navigate this new frontier of psychedelic exploration,
Yeah.
there's no easy answer. But one thing is certain. We have a responsibility to proceed with caution, humility, and a deep respect for the cultures that have been stewards of this knowledge for centuries.
I think that's a great place to leave it today. We've covered so much ground, from the depths of the Amazon rainforest to the deserts of North America, and we've only just scratched the surface of this incredible world of ethnobotany.
It's been quite a journey.
It has.
And I think it highlights the endless, fascination humans have with exploring consciousness, connecting with the spiritual realm, and finding our place within the vast web of life.
Absolutely. And it leaves us with a lot to think about, right? We've seen how different cultures have used plants to connect with the divine, to heal, to grow, to find their place in the universe. Now, here's something to ponder. Could this global interest in psychedelics actually hinder our understanding of true spiritual connection, or could it pave the way for a deeper understanding? What do you think?
Ooh, that's a good one. It's a question worth pondering.
It certainly is. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.